On New Year's Eve, a solitary billionaire CEO receives an urgent call from the hospital. "Hello, sir, you need to come immediately. Your son has just been born." Believing it to be a prank, he stands frozen in disbelief when the nurse reveals the identity of the mother. Before we dive in, please share in the comments where you're tuning in from and give this video a thumbs up to show your support for the channel. Take a moment to unwind and immerse yourself in the tale that unfolds. The clock read 11:48 as Javier Pena set the glass of whiskey down on the marble table. The city lights danced through the attic windows, casting a glow that felt like a celebration he was excluded from. The streets below thrummed with energy, couples raising their glasses, friends harmonizing, and fireworks starting to illuminate the night sky. It felt as though a wave of joy swept through the crowd, with each person marking a special occasion. Except for him. The quiet in his penthouse felt almost like a personal affront. The subtle hum of the heating system filled the air, accompanied by the sporadic creak of wood beneath his feet. Silence enveloped the space, devoid of melody, mirth, or conversation. Only he stood there, gazing at his reflection in the glass, alongside a bottle that persistently beckoned him. For years, he had steered clear of nights like these, where the joy of others only served to amplify his own sense of void. He had already endured countless extravagant gatherings filled with insincere grins, where everyone seemed to have an agenda involving him. Assets, connections, influence. Absent of love, devoid of true companionship. He approached the window and leaned his forehead against the chilled glass. The illumination in the center radiated with brilliance. The dome of the municipal theater loomed in view, with lanterns tracing the contours of the main avenue, and further afield, the residential neighborhoods buzzed with life, where warmth radiated from the lively homes. He pressed his lips together. Everything was done for the sake of others. For everyday individuals. Indeed, he possessed an empire. Businesses spanning 4 nations, a wealth that expanded even during his slumber, and a schedule that was unmanageable. Yet, he found himself without anyone to wish a happy new year, free from the anticipation of reciprocity. As the digital clock in the kitchen ticked to 11:59, Javier let out a sigh and moved to pour himself another drink. At that moment, the phone rang. It wasn't his cell phone, which had been in airplane mode for hours. It was the landline phone that he rarely touched. She cast him a fleeting glance, her brow furrowing in thought. Only his assistant was privy to that number, and it certainly wasn't the sort of call one anticipated at such an hour. He gathered his pace gradually. "Absolutely." A woman's voice came through, carrying a tone that was both professional and urgent. "Is Mr. Javier Pena present?" "I express myself. I'm reaching out from San Vicente General Hospital. I apologize for reaching out at this late hour, but this matter is quite significant." His body tightened immediately. There was an unmistakable quality in his tone that made her realize it wasn't a mistake in communication. "What occurs?" The woman took a momentary pause before proceeding. "A girl has entered the world this evening. Tragically, the mother passed away during the process of giving birth. In his final moments, he identified you as the father." Javier sensed the hue vanish from his complexion. He let the glass slip from his fingers, and it met the floor with a muted crunch. For a brief instant, he found himself at a loss for words, as though they had become trapped in his throat. "What about that?" "There must be no error. We recognize that this may come as a surprise, Mr. Pena, but the patient was unequivocal. He provided his complete name. He mentioned that you ought to look after the girl. That simply isn't possible." Javier rested his hand on the counter, a slight tremor betraying his nerves. "I have no participation in matters of that nature. I'm not quite sure I understand your point. The mother has signed the documentation. Please arrive at the hospital at your earliest convenience. The girl is doing well, yet she requires attention. You are the sole registered family member for him." The ensuing silence was palpable. Javier was uncertain whether he was even inhaling or exhaling. A young woman. A lifeless woman. And his name was woven into the very fabric of it all. Who was the mother figure? He succeeded in asking, his voice barely above a whisper. Emilia Paredes. The name struck him with the force of a blow to the heart. A vision of a young woman with large, expressive eyes and a timid smile unexpectedly surfaced in his thoughts. He had encountered her many years prior, during a time when he was still of the human kind. Before he wielded power, before he transformed into the Iceman he is now. They experienced a fleeting yet powerful connection. However, concise. It concluded as all things in his existence did, devoid of farewells, devoid of assurances. Simply creating space. She vanished from his life, leaving no trace behind. Do you really believe that? He whispered, lacking energy. We exist. I earnestly implore you to attend, Mr. Pena. We must not abandon the girl. Yet the words remained unspoken. The sound of the receiver clicking signaled the conclusion of the call, leaving no room for further denial. The stillness of the line was palpable, yet the echoes of his thoughts lingered, resonating within his mind. As the clock struck 12, turmoil reigned supreme. Explosions of light erupted above the city, transforming the night sky into a vibrant canvas of hues. Javier remained there, frozen in place, his gaze fixed on the phone. A young woman. His child. Emilia has passed away. Could it be achievable? Unbeknownst to him, his feet carried him to the couch. He sank down, sensing as if the whole ground was shifting beneath him. His thoughts were racing towards me, yet his feelings appeared to be ensnared in a tempest that he couldn't comprehend. Indeed, it was a fact. If that child was truly his. He raised his hands to his face. He was without children. He had no desire for them. He always doubted his ability to be a good father, let alone find space in his life for something so exposed. Their environment was ill-suited for infants. And yet, there he stood, ensnared by a name echoing from the past, by a woman who lingered in his memory, despite his efforts to move on. He rose abruptly, moving with unsteady strides. He swung the door to his bedroom wide, snatched his coat from the rack, and clutched his car keys tightly. Staying and pondering served no purpose. Answers were essential. Please verify that this was all an error, a miscommunication. Emilia simply could not have perished. It was impossible for me to have his child without informing him first. And yet, a profound intuition within him insisted that it was not a blunder. That his reality was on the brink of transformation for all time. As he descended in the elevator, disregarding the messages piling up on his cell phone and the faint sound of fireworks in the distance, only one image lingered with him, dark, bright eyes framed by a smile he thought was long buried in the past. And an infant. His offspring. If it were true, everything would change forever. The night pulsed with energy as Javier navigated the empty streets, the glistening asphalt mirroring the distant bursts of fireworks lighting up the sky. The typically bustling streets were hauntingly silent, as though the whole universe was rejoicing in the dawn of the new year, and he found himself drifting through a realm of frozen moments. His hands clutched the steering wheel with a fierce intensity, knuckles pale, and his breath came in sharp, labored gasps. The stillness within the car was pierced solely by the rhythmic ticking of the dashboard clock, counting the moments since that call that had upended his entire existence. Javier was puzzled about the reason for his trip to the hospital. A fragment of his being remained certain that it was an error, a sorrowful yet unfamiliar misinterpretation. However, the name Emilia had disturbed him. She was not a creation. He was not an aloof, indistinct figure. It was genuine. For a fleeting instant, it encompassed all that he had thought was hidden beneath the weight of his career, aspirations, and meticulously crafted solitude. I recalled her muted laughter, as though she were perpetually guarding a fragment of the world within her. Emilia shone brightly during a period of shadows. A getaway. A kind yet resolute woman, who never demanded anything from him, not even reasons for his sudden absences. At this moment. Now she was gone. He departed, leaving a girl behind, a daughter who, as per his final words, was undeniably his. The vehicle came to a halt outside the hospital, and Javier lingered for a moment, gazing at the brightly lit structure with a distant stare. His heart raced, not from a fear of what lay ahead, but from the weight of the past that was poised to meet him head-on. At last, he exited the vehicle, pushed through the sliding doors, and made his way to the reception desk. Javier Pena spoke with a strained tone. "A call came through to me just under an hour ago. I was instructed to arrive." The receptionist sensed an abrupt shift, as though the waiting had vanished entirely. "Indeed, Mr. Pena. The head nurse is expecting you. Kindly accompany me." They traversed the lengthy, stark corridors in quietude. Everywhere was infused with the sharp scent of disinfectant, a reminder of the rituals that marked the end of the day. The hospital exuded a veneer of tranquility, occasionally shattered by the hurried footsteps of staff or the relentless beeping of a monitor. A seasoned nurse, her face a blend of warmth and weariness, stood patiently at the end of the corridor, awaiting his arrival. "Señor Pena," he said, his voice carrying a warmth tempered by a touch of formality. "Thank you for your presence. I recognize that this may be challenging to come to terms with." He nodded, words escaping him. "Prior to your visit to the neonatal unit, the baby's mother entrusted us with something for you." The nurse retrieved a stamp from one of the pockets of her gown. "He urged me to read it thoroughly before arriving at any conclusions." Javier grasped the envelope with quivering fingers. The paper bore a few creases, yet the name was inscribed in a distinct, elegant handwriting that he recognized at once. Emilia. He located a nearby chair, settled into it, and meticulously broke the seal. The note was brief, composed in blue ink, and every word appeared to pulsate on the paper. "Javier, should you find yourself reading this, it signifies that I am no longer present. Putting these words down is a challenge for me, yet it matters deeply that you understand the truth. This girl, our daughter, is neither an accident nor a mistake. I understood the challenges ahead, aware that our lives were diverging, yet I chose to forge ahead on my own. I never intended to disrupt your life or ask anything of you, yet I always sensed, beneath the surface, that there was something beyond mere ambition residing within you. I have always held the conviction that you possessed the ability to experience genuine love, even when you doubted it within yourself. I understand if you find it hard to forgive me for not sharing this with you earlier. Please, keep your heart open to her. Lila is her name. Those eyes belong to you. Your trust means a lot to me." Emilia's tears fell unexpectedly. There weren't a lot of them, but their sincerity was undeniable. The most recent occasion he recalled shedding tears was during his mother's funeral, and even then, it wasn't quite like that. He was engulfed by a wave of emotion, as if the barriers he had painstakingly constructed over the years shattered upon encountering those words. Emilia placed her utmost faith in him, entrusting not just her life, but also the very essence of what she cherished above all else. A girl he had never known before, yet now felt as tangible as the very blood coursing through his veins. "Are you prepared to witness it?" the nurse inquired, gently. He sensed her presence, though uncertainty lingered in his mind. All he understood was that he couldn't depart without catching a glimpse of her, without at least meeting her gaze. They strolled toward the neonatal ward. The atmosphere enveloped in warmth, a hush settled over the surroundings. Numerous cribs lined the room, each cradling small forms, some peacefully sleeping while others stirred gently. The nurse guided him to an incubator positioned by the window. "Meet Lila." Javier moved forward with deliberate slowness. Within the confines of the crib, nestled in a soft pink blanket, lay the tiniest being he had ever encountered. His features were gentle, his skin radiating a warm hue. He lay in slumber, his mouth slightly ajar, while one of his small hands emerged from the cozy blanket. He gazed at her for what felt like an eternity, uncertain of his emotions. She possessed a striking beauty, an exquisite delicacy, and an aura that felt utterly foreign to him. And yet, a stirring in his chest emerged. It was neither assurance nor happiness. The atmosphere was thick with an unsettling blend of remorse, trepidation, and obligation. He was not suited for this existence. I was unfamiliar with the art of changing a diaper, the joy of singing lullabies, or the craft of weaving bedtime tales. His existence revolved around agreements, gatherings, and journeys. No set times for feeding or crying at night. Yet he came to understand that departure was not an option. The nurse, observing his state, positioned a chair beside the incubator. "Feel free to remain for as long as you require. If you'd like, you can go ahead and pick her up. We will be here with you." Javier's denial came slowly. "Not at this moment." Softly spoken. "Very well. Feel free to proceed at your own pace." She turned and left, leaving him in solitude with the girl. Javier's irritation deepened as he gazed at her expression. His mind wandered to Amelia. In every moment, she must have experienced the weight of nurturing that life within her, acutely aware of his absence. In all that remained unspoken, in all that went unnoticed. I found myself caught off guard. I was certain of it. He felt inadequate. Yet, I realized, after quite some time, that readiness isn't always the focal point. At times, it simply unfolds before you. And when the moment arrives for you, the choice is yours. Unbeknownst to him, in that very instant, Javier had already started to make his choice. The soft whispers of the neonatal ward floated through the air, a delicate blend of machine sounds and the gentle rise and fall of tiny breaths. Javier remained in place, silent beside the crib, gazing intently at the baby's delicate features. He was unaware of the duration that had slipped away since their first encounter. Moments, perhaps an eternity. Outside, the first light of dawn was creeping in, and the echoes of the final fireworks had faded away. A new year had dawned upon the world, yet he found himself grappling with the challenge of finding a way to progress. A young nurse approached with caution. "Do you wish to embrace her in your arms?" Javier gazed at her, uncertainty clouding his expression. The fear that consumed him was utterly ridiculous. He had led companies, confronted million-dollar choices, and navigated harsh negotiations with ease, yet now, the thought of nurturing a child just hours old left him frozen in place. "I'm uncertain if..." He began to speak, but the nurse cut him off with a calm, gentle smile. "I assist him. Only if you feel inclined." He sensed it, nearly without being aware. At my core, I craved it. I craved a sense of authenticity in this moment. She was not merely a concept, a notion penned in correspondence, but a vibrant existence, alive and in need of it. The nurse glided over with practiced grace and gently cradled the baby. With the utmost care, he gently placed her into Javier's embrace. He grasped it clumsily at first, as though he feared it might shatter. Gradually, his arms adapted to his petite frame, and a certain ease began to unfold within him. Lila shifted gently, emitting a soft sound, as though objecting to the alteration in her stance. Javier paused, his breath caught in his chest. He examined her intently for the first time. Her eyes remained shut, with delicate, wispy eyelashes framing her serene expression. The nose, petite. His lips, barely forming a curve, released a sigh so gentle it felt almost ethereal. Then, all at once, one of his tiny hands peeked out from beneath the blankets. His fingers, delicate and small as if crafted from paper, reached out to connect with his. And so it unfolded. The girl encircled her index finger with surprising force. It was a reflection unlike any other. It felt like I was conveying to him that his presence alone was sufficient for me. Javier experienced a tightness in his throat that he found impossible to clear. He held back tears, yet his eyes glistened, and for a fleeting moment, everything around him faded away. There existed neither enterprises nor structures, nor any figures. Only her. Lilac. His child. "Greetings, dear child," he murmured, uncertain of the source of the voice. "I exist. I may not know my place in your world just yet, but here I stand." She remained silent, naturally. She persisted in holding on to him, embodying that serene resolve that infants possess to grasp onto existence, to connection, to comfort. The nurse observed him from afar, honoring the significance of the moment. At last, Javier turned his gaze toward her, a frown on his face, yet his eyes were wider than they had ever been. "Is there a formal title for it?" inquired. "Not at this moment. It seems to exist solely as the child of Emilia Paredes." He cast his gaze upon the girl. Emilia. The name lingered with him, not from sorrow, but from affection. A romance that was fleeting and perplexing, yet has now blossomed in unforeseen directions. "I wish for her to be named Lila," he stated, his tone soft yet resolute. "Emilia desired that name, I am certain." The nurse's touch was tender. "What about the second one?" Javier paused briefly. "Lila Emilia Pena. I want you to always be aware of its origins." The name resonated perfectly when he uttered it. It felt as though giving it a name was, in a sense, embracing its existence. Lila Emilia. A blend of the now and the then, of purity and recollection. His offspring. As moments slipped by, Javier continued to embrace her, savoring her warmth and attuning himself to the rhythm of her breath. He had never experienced such profound stillness. I had never felt so alive in the moment. At last, the nurse came forward and, with a courteous motion, inquired if she wished to return to the incubator. He sensed it, albeit with a hint of hesitation. He was reluctant to part with her, yet he understood that the moment for that was not yet upon them. As the nurse made her adjustments, Javier remained standing with his arms crossed, observing each action intently. His mind was a tempest of inquiries. What am I supposed to do now? How could he possibly find a way to move forward with his life? Yet, for the first time, those questions failed to stir any anxiety within him. They built up a strong drive. As though the focus had shifted away from him and onto her. "What comes next?" he inquired, his gaze fixed on the nurse. "It would be best to sign the acknowledgement and custody papers. It's a journey, and it all begins with the choice you make. No one will compel you to take any action, Mr. Pena." Yet she finds herself in solitude. "What about you? You are all that you possess." Javier cast his gaze downward. "Indeed, I was aware of it. I had already sensed it. I'm ready to take the lead," he declared, confidently. "I'm not sure how or what it requires, but I want to get it right." The nurse smiled. "Then we will take that first step." He was led into a modest office where the legal and medical details were laid out for him. Javier signed where instructed, his thoughts still a bit hazy, yet with every stroke of his signature came a newfound resolve. This was more than just a typical contract. It was a promise to the existence of an individual who had sought nothing, yet now relied entirely on him. As he stepped out of the office, he paused to glance back at the neonatal ward one final time. Lila drifted into a serene slumber. Though her small hand no longer rested in his, Javier sensed that the connection they shared had been intricately crafted, independent of the necessity for continual touch. The task was completed. Indestructible. He pressed against the glass, his voice barely a whisper, "I promise I will do everything I can for you. I have no idea how to be a father, but I'm going to learn. I swear, Lila." The night was starting to brighten. The first hint of dawn crept through the living room window, a bluish gray that heralds the arrival of a new day. Javier lingered, captivated by the glow illuminating his daughter's serene, slumbering visage. For the first time in ages, he sensed he possessed something beyond the reach of purchase, negotiation, or control. Something that sought him not for his possessions, but for the potential he held within. A newborn. A title. A fresh beginning. And the unspoken vow that everything would change forever. The early rays of dawn guided him as he made his way back. Lila had remained in the hospital for observation, and even though they reassured him of her health, Javier couldn't shake the feeling that he had left her vulnerable. Each kilometer that separated him from her felt like a heavy burden on his heart. Upon arriving in his attic, a shroud of silence wrapped around him once more, yet it felt distinctly unfamiliar. Now it felt overwhelmingly vast and frigid, as if the void left by that small being was echoing through every nook and cranny. He dozed for a brief spell on the couch, fully dressed and his body rigid. He envisioned Amelia, her gentle gaze and soothing voice whispering assurances that all would be well, even as doubt lingered in his heart. He stirred from sleep, a sense of urgency gripping him, as if every moment was precious and fleeting. Indeed, he was correct. The days that followed unfolded in a relentless stream of paperwork, consultations with attorneys, medical examinations, and procedures that he had never envisioned facing. A week after that night, he was granted official custody of Lila. He enveloped her in a gentle blanket and transported her home, experiencing a mix of awkwardness, fear, and an unexpected sense of completeness. The attic was ill-prepared for the arrival of a baby. All was pristine, orderly, and elegantly simple. Every object was positioned with a deliberate sense of beauty. Yet, all of that faded away when Lila shed her first tears in her new home. Javier, having navigated the pressures of investor meetings and global financial turmoil, found himself immobilized by that cry. That very day, he engaged a babysitter. She was known as Teresa, a seasoned and nurturing individual, possessing a strong voice and reassuring hands. She immediately assumed command, managing feeding schedules, sleep routines, and diaper changes. Javier observed everything from afar, mentally cataloging each moment as if he were enrolled in a rigorous course on mastering the art of parenthood. In the initial weeks, her routine transformed into a frantic effort to juggle her career and this newfound reality. Her mornings, once flawlessly structured with meetings and calls, now started with Lila's cries or the gentle hum of a bottle warming in the kitchen. He secluded himself in his office to focus on his work, while Teresa managed nearly all the other tasks. Despite expressing his gratitude for her assistance, an unsettling feeling was starting to stir within him. Each time I caught the sound of her laughter mingling with the baby's coos or witnessed her gently holding the little one, a sharp twinge of jealousy washed over me, or maybe it was something more profound, shame. As she forged a connection with her daughter, he was only beginning to grasp its significance. In the stillness of the night, as Lila lay peacefully asleep, Javier lingered in the doorway, his gaze fixed upon her. Her petite form lay peacefully in the freshly put-together crib, encircled by plush toys and a soft, glowing night light. He found himself pondering whether she harbored any feelings for him, if she truly recognized him, if she grasped that he was her father, or if he merely existed as another figure in the apartment. In that moment, almost against his will, memories of his own childhood surfaced. The grand residence in which he was raised. The caregivers rotated every 6 months. His mother, perpetually missing. His father, a formidable and stern figure, instilled in him the importance of strength but not the necessity of affection. He had no recollection of a gentle touch or a night spent wide awake by his side. His childhood unfolded as a sequence of directives and demands, devoid of warmth or solace. He pressed his lips together. I never wished that for Lila. History eluded my grasp. I needed to shatter the pattern. The following morning, he rose before Teresa did. He meticulously readied the bottle, recalling the countless times he had observed her perform the task, and stepped into Lila's room just as she started to awaken in the crib. He raised it with caution, sensing his awkwardness and rigidity, yet resolute. "Good morning, dear child," he murmured gently, as she gazed up at him with wide, curious eyes. He remained composed. He observed him intently, as though assessing his worth. He nourished her, tended to her needs, and held her close for over an hour, meandering through the attic, engaging in light conversation about trivial matters, the weather, the artwork adorning the walls, and the twinkling city lights beyond. It was on that day that Teresa discovered him cradling the baby in his arms. He remained silent, simply offering a smile. From that point onward, everything started to shift. Javier scaled back his work hours, entrusted decisions to his trusted associates, and restructured his schedule. After years of strict control, he finally allowed chaos to seep into his life. Despite the daily struggles, the restless nights, the fatigue, and the nagging uncertainties, there were still instances that ignited a sense of vitality within him. The moment Lila smiled in his embrace, Javier experienced a profound sensation, as if his heart shattered into countless fragments only to be swiftly restored. It was a half-formed, unrefined, impulsive grin. Yet authentic. And it was meant for him. Yet, there were evenings when the doubt resurfaced. As Lila wept uncontrollably, he found himself at a loss for how to soothe her distress. In moments of feeling unqualified, isolated, and overwhelmingly insufficient. In those moments, he was engulfed by the dread of not succeeding. One morning, after nearly an hour of unsuccessful attempts to lull her to sleep, he found himself seated with her cradled in his arms, gazing out the window. He cradled her softly, weary, overcome. "I'm not sure I can manage this," Lila murmured, leaning her cheek against his. "I'm not sure I possess what you seek." Yet, rather than weeping, she nestled into his embrace and drifted off to sleep. And Javier, inexplicably, sensed a renewed ability to breathe once more. As time went on, he realized that being a father was neither a destination to reach nor a talent to perfect. It was a routine creation. A perpetual yielding of oneself. Ultimately, it was about embracing the reality that he wouldn't possess all the answers, yet his presence and his flawed affection held greater value than any guidebook. Lila altered it. Not abruptly, not astonishingly. Yet with each passing day, each smile exchanged, and every tear shared, something fresh began to take shape within her. A sensation I never realized I was capable of experiencing. Even in his lingering fear, he came to realize that love emerges not from understanding, but from a conscious choice. And he was ready to be present. Without fail. Against all odds, Lila had ignited within him a force more powerful than fear, the profound desire to embrace his role as a father and to excel in it. The weeks flowed seamlessly into one another, marked not by conferences or budget presentations, but by bottles, diaper changes, and fleeting moments of rest. Javier, once accustomed to a life where every second was accounted for and every detail meticulously planned, now found himself counting moments in the rhythm of milk feedings, the contented burps of his child, and the enchanting quiet of his daughter peacefully resting on his chest. Each day unfolded uniquely, yet a certain rhythm was starting to emerge, one that felt increasingly known. Javier stirred awake at the sound of Lila's initial wail, just moments before dawn broke. He felt no more surprise. Instead, he settled onto the bed, his eyelids still weighted, and made his way to the next room, where the small figure who had transformed his life in the most enchanting manner awaited him. He lifted her gently, whispering tender words, and when she caught sight of him, her eyes fluttered open as if she recognized him, as if she understood that he was the one destined to always come back. He mastered the art of reading it. He realized that he emitted a distinct sound when hunger struck and another entirely when he simply craved the comfort of being held. She enjoyed drifting off to sleep with one hand clutching the small blue blanket that Teresa had given her. She found solace in his voice, even if his words were trivial or he simply read her work reports with a gentle inflection. One day, as he was engaged in the act of bottle feeding, Lila cast a gaze upon him that was so intense it left him feeling utterly unarmed. As she completed her drink and he gently placed her on his shoulder to assist with the burping, a soft moan escaped her lips, and then grinned. It was a brief, clumsy, nearly undetectable smile. Yet, it was his inaugural experience. And Javier sensed an overwhelming openness in his chest. A gentle chuckle escaped him, surprising in its spontaneity, and he lingered there, holding her closer than ever, as though he wished to become one with that fleeting moment. "You truly have no clue how to handle this situation with me, do you?" he murmured softly to her. "I have just finalized the most significant agreement of my career. You didn't even need to request it from me." That moment marked a significant shift. Not solely due to the bond he experienced, but because it compelled him to view his life from a fresh perspective. He started to perceive his company, his meetings, his empire, as a mechanism that had lost its once compelling allure. For the first time, his position as CEO felt insignificant next to the importance of being Lila's dad. On a particularly tumultuous morning, after Lila had an unfortunate incident with her breakfast all over her shirt right before a video call with Japanese investors, Javier came to the stark realization that he could no longer maintain the facade that everything was unchanged. He ended the call, removed his soiled tie, and dialed Marcos, his trusted partner. "I need you to take charge for a bit," he said straightforwardly. "I remain present, though perhaps with a different fervor. My focus has shifted to other matters at this time." The line was filled with an unsettling quiet. "Is it related to the girl?" Marcos inquired. "Indeed. Lila is her name. I desire to be fully engaged. Not like a fleeting shadow, but something truly substantial." Marcos felt no surprise. He revealed something unexpected to Javier. "I always believed you had more heart than you were willing to acknowledge. You are currently utilizing it. You can rely on me." Handing over responsibilities proved challenging, yet it turned out to be more freeing than he had anticipated. Gradually, their house transformed into a true home. A designer was brought on board to transform the attic, creating a play area complete with soft rugs, shelves filled with children's books, and warm hues adorning the walls. The space had shed its disguise as a concealed gathering spot. In that moment, joy filled the air, playthings lay strewn about, and the delightful aroma of baby lotion wafted through the room. Yet, an unresolved matter lingered in the air. There was a gnawing feeling that troubled him during the quiet nights, as Lila lay peacefully asleep while he found himself wide awake, fixated on the ceiling. Emilia. She lingered in my thoughts, an unshakable presence. Contemplating the experience of her pregnancy. In those moments when you considered reaching out to him but ultimately chose not to. In the solitude he must have experienced while navigating such significant choices without their backing. And, most importantly, in the courage of having welcomed Lila into existence through love, despite his absence. On a Saturday morning, he entrusted Lila to Teresa and made his way to the cemetery, where he had been informed Emilia lay at rest. He lacked both blooms and crafted phrases. A subtle sense of remorse and an urge to bring closure to a lingering chapter that had remained unresolved for far too long. The sky was overcast. The leaves drifted gently onto the tombstones, while a tender breeze stirred his coat. She strolled until she discovered her name etched in stone, Emilia Paredes. 1991 to 2024, Mom. Companion. Illumination. Javier held his silence for what felt like an eternity. He knelt before the grave, his hand gently resting on the cold surface. "I'm unsure about how to begin this," he whispered softly. "I never figured out how to communicate with you, do you recall? I excelled at sealing the deal, yet struggled to express my true feelings. However, on this day, I feel compelled to share something that I should have expressed earlier. I apologize, Emily. I apologize for my absence. For departing, for not granting you the position you rightfully earned." He inhaled deeply, steadying the quiver in his voice. "Lilac is truly delightful. He possesses your gaze, yet when he beams. I'm uncertain, but it seems like you're the one who's encouraging me to believe that I can still set things straight. I assure you that I will see it through. I assure you, I will not let you down." He leaned his forehead against the stone, shutting his eyes gently. Your influence has led me to realize that it's not about what I've created externally, but rather what I cultivate in this space, alongside her. Within our home. Within his realm. Thus. This will be my top priority. Silence reigned, as expected. Yet, as he rose, a sense of relief washed over him, lifting the weight from his chest. It wasn't entirely tranquility, but it marked the beginning. He ascended to the attic, fueled by a fresh resolve. As he opened the door, Lila awaited him in Teresa's embrace, her tiny legs kicking with excitement at the sight of him, as if she already knew who he was. He seized her instantly, hoisting her into the air, and she released a giggle that resonated deep within him. I'm here, my dear, he said softly, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Dedicated to you. I will always be present. For the first time, Javier grasped the reality that he had truly awakened. Not from a fantasy, but from a reality I once thought was whole. Yet, it was only at this moment that it started to truly resonate. Life with Lila had settled into a comforting and nearly enchanting rhythm. Javier, once focused on quantifying his life through numbers, now found meaning in laughter, gentle murmurs, and the warmth of his daughter's embrace, who, though unaware of her identity, instinctively saw him as her safe haven. He had accomplished what he once thought was unattainable, a sense of equilibrium. Yet that tranquility would soon be disrupted by a truth that had been overlooked for far too long. It all began one morning. Javier crafted breakfast while Lilac perched on his high armchair, rhythmically tapping a spoon against the table. Teresa, as ever, orchestrated the kitchen with the gentle cadence of a soft melody that lingered faintly in the background. The phone rang, and instinctively, Javier answered. Mr. Pena, the voice on the other side says Marissa Duarte, her communications team. There's something you should be aware of before it becomes ubiquitous. A knot tightened in his stomach. What transpired? A platform for entertainment released a statement this morning. They claim you have a hidden daughter. There are images from the hospital, including one of you arriving with a blanket cradled in your arms. Javier froze in place. The sharp clang of the spoon against the wood echoed, while the rest faded into a haze. Marissa kept speaking, yet her words fell on deaf ears. All that occupied my mind was Lila. In his gapped grin, in his scent of powder and comforting warmth of milk. In what manner the unforgiving realm from which he emerged could now direct its focus towards her. Left hanging without elaboration. He grabbed his cell phone, launched the browser, and with just his name typed in, the headlines popped up instantly. CEO Javier Pena astonishes everyone with an unforeseen announcement of fatherhood. Who is the mother of that girl? A wealthy entrepreneur and his enigmatic heiress, the tale concealed within the quietude. The images caused him to clench his jaw. Some images were indistinct, yet others distinctly captured him as he exited the hospital, cradling Lila in his arms. Another shot, uncomfortably close, depicted Teresa making her way into the attic, a children's backpack slung over her shoulder. The photographers arrived shortly thereafter. In the days that followed, numerous vehicles were stationed in front of the building. Some reporters posed as distributors, while others slipped anonymous notes at the reception. Javier swiftly bolstered security measures and barred entry to anyone not on the list, yet this action fell short of restoring a sense of calm. Lila, untouched by the turmoil around her, stayed unchanged. Yet he does not. I sensed the unrelenting gaze of those devoid of any moral compass. For the first time in his life, he felt liberated from the constraints of public perception and the repercussions of his choices. His only concern was for her well-being. One evening, as they sipped coffee in the kitchen, Teresa, ever the voice of reason, offered a suggestion. Why don't you confide in someone you trust? A friend, perhaps a relative. You don't have to face this alone, Javier, and she shouldn't have to either. He looked at her, coming to the unsettling realization that it had been a long time since he had opened up to anyone outside of work. That very week, he reached out to Clara, her distant cousin with whom she had shared countless summer days during her childhood. He had lost touch with her years ago, yet he recalled that it was always straightforward, genuine, and filled with a tremendous warmth. "Xavier?" he responded, taken aback to see his number. "Are you all right?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I have a daughter. Her name is Lila. I can't quite explain it, but there was something about you that made me feel comfortable enough to share my thoughts." Clara moved forward without a moment's doubt. He arrived the following day, carrying a bag brimming with his daughter's gently worn clothes, a batch of homemade cookies, and a collection of maternal advice that he recited from memory, never glancing at the paper. "We aren't born with the instinct to be parents, Ale," he said as Lila tugged at a lock of his hair. "It's something we learn along the journey. And the wonderful aspect is that you're not in this by yourself." Clara was the first to arrive, yet she was not alone. Gradually, Javier started to reconnect with the relationships he had once set aside. He reached out to Rodrigo, his former university partner, who now had twins and was well-versed in the world of nightlife. He also reconnected with Lucia, a longtime friend of his mother, who assisted him in locating a reputable nursery known for its discretion. Even Marcos, his partner, began to visit him more frequently, bringing along children's books and sharing anecdotes about his own family. For the first time in ages, Javier felt a sense of connection, no longer the solitary figure he once was. "I was creating something beyond just a residence, I was establishing a connection. A collective of individuals. Individuals who embraced his arrival without casting judgment on his tardiness, instead rejoicing in his presence at this moment." However, one problem continued to linger, unchanged. He had successfully gathered a circle of remarkable individuals, started to grasp the essence of unconditional love as seen through his daughter's perspective, yet still carried an unsettling sensation, a burden that refused to lift. Whenever Lila gazed at him as though he were her whole world, a quiet voice within him murmured that it would never suffice, that eventually, he would let her down. On that rainy afternoon, he stated plainly, "You can't care for Lila if you don't first care for yourself. Have you considered reaching out to someone for a conversation?" Javier gazed at her, taken aback. Then he cast his gaze downward. "The notion of pursuing therapy had crossed my mind previously, yet it was consistently set aside." He was a man of decisive measures, swift resolutions. What's the point of discussing emotions with someone you don't know? But that night, as Lila slept with one hand clutching her finger, she realized it was time to confront her own shadows. To become the father she truly deserved, he needed to come to terms with the boy he once was. The boy who had spent his childhood devoid of embraces, lacking gentle words, believed that love was a reward to be earned rather than a natural occurrence. Initially filled with doubt, Javier embarked on his journey into therapy. The initial sessions felt quite awkward. I said few words, but absorbed everything around me. Yet, as time passed, thoughts emerged, fear of failure, blame directed at Emilia, resentment towards his father, and a growing disconnection from his own humanity. Amidst it all, there runs a persistent thread, a yearning to create something unique, to strive for improvement. Gradually, he started to realize that being vulnerable did not equate to being weak. Revealing her emotions to Lila would not lead to confusion, instead, it would guide her to embrace them. Protecting it wasn't about constructing barriers, but rather about instilling a sense of trust in the world, with the assurance that he would always be there to support him if he ever faltered. The clamor of the media gradually diminished. Javier declined to provide any statements. There was no need for me to provide any justification. His existence had shifted from the spotlight to the subtleties, found in Lila's awkward strides through the corridor, in his chuckle at the sight of bubbles drifting by, in the embraces that concluded with her nestled peacefully against him. The obstacles remained, yet Javier found himself confronting them not in solitude, nor with a shield. He discovered the importance of seeking assistance, taking breaks when required, and letting go of control when the situation called for it. And, most importantly, to have faith that the affection he held for his daughter was sufficient to lead him. Ultimately, fatherhood isn't about achieving perfection. It was centered on existence. Indeed, he was here, aware, ready. And that presence, day after day, was reshaping it from within. Winter arrived quietly, shrouded in a gray sky, casting a muted, less celebratory hue over the streets. Nearly a year had passed since that fateful night when Javier received the call that altered the course of his life. Occasionally, he would awaken questioning whether it had all been a mere dream, but the sound of Lila's laughter was always enough to remind him that it was indeed real. She moved with a mix of awkwardness and resolve, her outstretched arms seeking balance as she navigated the living room transformed into a play zone. Teresa often remarked that she possessed her father's unwavering resolve, yet there was a gentleness in her demeanor that could only be linked to Emilia. Javier chose to remain silent. He often found comfort in the belief that Emilia lingered in her daughter's subtle actions, in the way she glanced or expressed her discontent when things didn't unfold as she wished. The attic had transformed completely. The once cold and elegant space transformed into a haven of warmth, adorned with soft textures, cushions, blankets, and a carpet that embraced nearly the entire room, allowing Lila to sit, crawl, or play with her blocks freely and without worry. The walls, once bare and colorless, now displayed vibrant children's drawings, framed photos capturing significant moments, the first time Lila grasped a spoon, her inaugural stroll to the park, a tender snapshot of her peacefully resting on Javier's chest. The space he once called his office had been reimagined as the lilac room. Gentle hues, resilient beams resembling stars, shelves brimming with tales, and a crib now reserved for brief rests, as he had grown used to slumbering in a bed with railings, clutching his beloved stuffed animal close to his heart. Javier had unearthed the joy in life's little moments, reading to her before drifting off to sleep, crafting whimsical songs to elicit her laughter, and making breakfast while she perched on the countertop, playfully tossing cereal onto the floor. What once appeared to him as a mere distraction from his true existence had now become the focal point of his entire being. As the year drew to a close, a quiet voice within him urged that he must pay tribute to that journey. He arranged a quaint gathering under the night sky. There was nothing extravagant, just a small group of individuals who had formed his community, Clara and his children, Marcos with his wife, Rodrigo with his twins, Teresa, naturally, and a few neighbors who had grown close in recent months. He sought assistance in beautifying the living room. Garlands were draped, soft lights twinkled, and a table overflowed with homemade delights. Even Lila had a cascade of vibrant paper that she hesitated to use for more than 5 minutes, yet it made a loud announcement to everyone when she attempted to drape it over her stuffed animal. "Could you have envisioned this a year back?" Clara inquired as she offered him a glass of wine. Javier offered a smile and gently shook his head. "I wouldn't have permitted it at all. Take a moment to reflect on who you are today. You are enveloped by those who cherish you, and you have a daughter who adores you. If that doesn't qualify as a fresh beginning, I'm not sure what does." At 11:58, the lights went out, and we rushed to the race to catch the fireworks. Javier cradled Lila in his arms, swathed in a cozy blanket, her eyes wide with wonder at the vibrant colors bursting across the sky. "Happy New Year," softly spoken. "I appreciate your guidance in embracing new beginnings." Amidst the laughter, hugs, and twinkling lights, Javier experienced a profound, quiet feeling that guided him toward a new choice. That same night, after everyone had departed and Lila was fast asleep, she found herself seated at the desk, staring at a blank notebook. He started to compose a draft, almost instinctively, as though the words had been poised for him all along. The concept originated weeks prior, but it was in the meeting that it truly began to take form. I envisioned establishing a foundation. Not in the role of a business owner, but in the capacity of a parent. I aimed to create something meaningful in honor of Emilia, while also reaching out to all the other Emilias out there. Solo parents. Single parents. Children brought into a world of unpredictability, neglect, and limited prospects. He reached out to the Luz de Emilia Foundation. The aim was evident: to extend support to parents in challenging circumstances, to furnish resources, legal guidance, medical aid, and most importantly, emotional reassurance. I aimed to create environments where everyone felt a sense of belonging, just as he believed Emilia ought to have experienced. The launch process spanned several months, yet it culminated in a delivery that astonished even its most seasoned collaborators. He allocated a portion of his wealth to establish offices, recruit dedicated professionals, and forge partnerships with hospitals and community centers. The foundation expanded rapidly, propelled not just by Javier's reputation, but by the clear vision it embodied. With every inauguration, he brought Lila along. Not merely as a symbol, but as an observer. She was the catalyst for it all. His presence served as a reminder that this new chapter was not merely a path to redemption, but also an opportunity to create something greater than himself. One afternoon, as they made their way back from a meeting of the foundation, Lila dozed in her car seat. Javier halted at a traffic light, his gaze drawn to the reflection of the two of them in the rearview mirror. He contemplated the essence of the man he had become. The individual who welcomed the new year in a flawless attic, enveloped by both triumph and a profound sense of void. And he pondered who he had become: an imperfect being, weary, frequently awkward. However, complete. Brimming with vitality, intent, and affection. He understood, without a moment's doubt, that there was still much ahead of him. Yet this time, I would approach it not from the heights of a glass tower, but from the ground, at the level of a one-year-old girl who had chosen her hero without any expectation of reward. Ultimately, creating a new life did not mean obliterating the past. It was reshaping it, piece by piece, with every choice, with every movement, with every embrace. Javier was resolute in his quest to elevate that home, that future, once more. This moment is meant for us both. The snow descended gently upon the city, enveloping rooftops, trees, and streets in a pristine white blanket that hushed the sounds and imparted a sense of tranquility and calmness to the scene. From the attic window, Javier gazed at the overcast sky, reflecting on how, precisely 1 year prior, a single phone call had transformed his life. A call that, within moments, compelled him to confront an unexpected reality, ultimately guiding him to uncover the deepest essence of his being. Lila dozed on the couch, cocooned in a bear-patterned blanket, her tousled dark curls spilling out as the party lingered on around her. He cradled a stuffed animal under his arm, his small hand outstretched as if he were still grasping onto a dream. Javier moved quietly, kneeling before her to take in her presence for a brief moment. It was astonishing how quickly it had expanded. She was no longer the delicate infant she once cradled with trepidation. He walked now, albeit with a slight stagger, uttering a few words amidst laughter, casting a glance that held a shared understanding, rendering him defenseless. Beside the couch, on the floor, lay his tiny red shoes. That morning, she embarked on her journey of independence, taking her first steps unassisted. He navigated the space filled with laughter and applause, clutching his cell phone as he attempted to capture the moment, fighting back tears. He was unable to succeed. He found himself on the floor, sharing laughter with her, shedding a few tears, and experiencing a sense of peace settling in his chest that he had never encountered before. He cast a glance at the clock. A few hours remained until midnight. The dinner was prepared, and Teresa had already withdrawn, having insisted that the start of the year with her family would come to an end. Javier expressed his gratitude for the gesture and enveloped her in a warm embrace. "This evening, I wish to enjoy a solitary night with Lila." Not due to a sense of solitude, but rather because there existed a profound intimacy that he yearned to share solely with her. He illuminated the gentle glow of the Christmas tree that continued to grace the corner of the living room and settled onto the couch beside her. As Lila opened her eyes, blinking slowly like a child just roused from slumber, she discovered him there, smiling at her. She opened her arms wide, and he lifted her gently, holding her close to his heart. "Would you care to join me in witnessing the lights, my dear?" he whispered. She let out a soft sigh, rubbing her eyes. Javier rose, cradling her gently in his arms, ensuring she was snug beneath the blanket, and made his way to the terrace. The air was chilly, yet manageable. He pulled out a spacious chair, settling her in a nook where the sky was unobstructed, and perched beside her with lilac resting on her legs. The adorned streets, the glowing windows, and the initial bursts of fireworks on the horizon were set apart. The world appeared to be readying itself to welcome a new year, enveloped in a gentle, almost restrained joy. Javier sensed that, for the first time, he was content without the need for grand celebrations or loud festivities. Just that, the sky, his daughter, and the unwavering assurance of being precisely where he belongs. "A year ago, at this moment, I was completely unaware of your existence," he murmured softly, running his fingers through his hair. "Now, I find it hard to imagine my life before you came into it." Lila shifted slightly, settling into his lap, and he kept speaking, uncertain whether he was doing more for her or for his own sake. "I believed I possessed all that was necessary. I believed that achieving success was sufficient. Yet you were anticipating my arrival. Even though I was unaware." He gazed at the sky, where a crimson explosion crafted a momentary blossom. "I wasn't the ideal choice, Lila. I have made mistakes on numerous occasions. I overlooked the significant. Yet, you provided me with another chance. Emilia as well. Though it may have faded, I sense that your strength still resides within you. And I want you to understand that it will always have company." Lila lifted her gaze, her dark eyes reflecting a striking resemblance to her mother's. He grinned, revealing a mouthful of dazzling teeth, and gently caressed his cheek with a warm hand. Javier shut his eyes and pressed his lips to his fingertips, filled with gratitude. Nothing could embody redemption more perfectly than that. As the clock struck midnight, a dazzling array of fireworks erupted in every direction. The sky shimmered with hues that danced in Lila's captivated gaze. Javier held her stronger, curling her against her chest, and whispered among the rumble of the lights, "I love you. And I promise you that I will do my best to give your life you deserve. For you. And for her." At that moment, everything seemed to stop. No noises matter, nor the lost years, nor the mistakes. Only that moment mattered, a girl in her father's arms, under a sky of promises and colors. The cold no longer felt. Javier remained silent, letting Lila enjoy each light, every burst. And while doing so, I thought about how love can get in unexpected ways, how life, with all its hardness, can also give second opportunities. They returned in a while later. Lila was already half asleep, with her head on her shoulder and legs hanging softly. Javier took her to his bed, took the blanket and wrapped her carefully. He stayed for a while looking at her sleep, with a quiet smile, and then turned off the light. In the living room, a glass of wine was served and sat in front of the window. The city was still alive, but he felt in peace. He had achieved it. Not because his life was resolved, or because he had all the answers, but because he finally understood what meant being complete. In the distance, his image was reflected in the glass. He was no longer the same man a year ago. He had the most marked dark circles, perhaps some new gray hair, but also a light in the eyes that he had never had before. Lila had changed her life. Not with great gestures, but with every laugh, every insecure step, every unexpected hug. She had shown him that love is not sought. Sometimes, it simply arrives, when you least expect it. And in that love he had found his purpose. Not as an entrepreneur, not as heir to a millionaire legacy, but as a father. As a man who, lost in his wealth, found the greatest treasure where he expected him least, in the heart of a girl who did not even know how to speak, but who had taught him to listen. The clock marked 12:40-5 when Javier got up, turned off the lights, and went to bed. But before closing the door of the lilac room, he stayed for a moment observing it. New Year, my love," she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me. He closed the door gently. And with a calm that had not felt in years, he dropped into bed, knowing that the best of his life was no longer to come. It was happening. At every turn. To each hug. To each dawn. Because, sometimes, the greatest gifts arrive in the most unexpected wrapping. And love, when it is true, has the ability to heal even the oldest wounds. If you liked this story, don't forget to leave a like, it really helps the channel. And if you want to listen to more moving and exciting stories like this, subscribe and activate notifications not to miss any. Tell me in the comments what you thought, I would love to know your opinion. Thanks for your support and see you in the next story.